3, 2.
Can you dig it?
Now hear this. You're listening to Charlie Tricks, Remy Say, and John Boom. Come on.
I'm a rap liver, you can't quiver, the skills is infinite. A critical trait like DNA.
There it is.
Function within my space of well-being. It's quality. Beaming in front of you, I'm here to fill to the gap. Drive out.
I just like letting that run for a second.
Hey, let it run.
Let D cook.
You know? We back in this bitch.
Shout out to the Professor Elusive.
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to TFP, the Fans Perspective. I am your host, Charlie Tricks, and I'm here with my brother,
Remy Say. What's good, everybody?
What's good, everybody? And we got my man,
It's your boy John Boom, que paso?
John Busy Boom is in the building.
Yes.
It is a beautiful Saturday, the 14th of January, 2023. Let's take
a cold
year.
one.
Let's take this down. We made it, right, and shit.
Yes, Happy New Year. I mean, nah, you can't even say it now because it's like 2 weeks in, so just a new year.
Yeah, you should have got your ass started already by now.
Right, if I haven't talked to you this soon, you probably don't need a Happy New Year.
Yeah.
So, good thing, a special thing about this episode. This is episode 77 of our published podcast.
Yes.
But this is actually episode 1 of our video cast, which will be posted up on YouTube soon.
Yeah.
So today is the first time we're doing that. And thanks to the help of Lou Vamanonos Digital.
Shout out.
Who is recording this and putting this together for us.
Let's get it. Shout out to Lou.
We got a special show for you today. The first story, I'm going to jump right into it. Actually, you got anything you want to... Anybody want to get anything off their chest before we get down and dirty?
Nah, let's rock.
Yeah, I'm down to rock, man. Yo, just what's up to the people? You know we in the building, TFP all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted to start off with this story just because it made me feel good when I saw it. This made me think of the Great Wall of China, which is actually, this is really cool. I'm going to show you a picture. This is the Great Green Wall of Africa. And not many people that I know have ever said much about it. So I came across the story. I'm just going to read you a little bit about exactly what it is. The Great Green Wall of Africa is, it's a project led by the African Union, initially conceived as a way to combat, and I have know how to pronounce this word, desertification.
Yeah.
In the Sahel region and hold back the expansion of the Sahara by planting a wall of trees that's going to stretch across the entire Sahel. The Sahel is the region of Africa in the north. You can see on the screen here where up here is all desert and it's all dead. And all the life starts here. So the goal of the project is to plant a wall of trees across all of these nations. And I'll show you here coming together to basically stop the desert from growing. But it's just such an amazing sight to see. And
yes, sir.
Here's another picture of how the land looks. Sorry for the people on the podcast, you're not getting the visual.
If you're listening, the visual is basically, it's a straight line of green, and then it turns to brown, and you can just see the dead land versus the forest land, or where where there's life. And so I guess they're planting along there to make it stronger and keep the desert from spreading further, which would be, I guess, desertification.
Yeah, so the crazy thing about it is that it started off as a mission that was already amazing because all these nations have to agree to work together to do this, which they did. And it's actually evolved since then. And the modern Green Wall has since evolved into a program promoting water harvesting techniques, greenery protection, and improving indigenous land use techniques. It's aimed at creating a mosaic of green productive landscapes across North Africa.
Ooh,
so
okay.
I just found that whole story to be amazing, and more so the visual effect of it.
Now, you think the Wakanda movie had any influence on this? Because this is very high-tech shit.
I think that Wakanda's probably like right here. If we went into
You
Google
know?
Earth and zoomed in a little bit,
Right, there's a tree named Chadwick somewhere.
This
in
got
loving memory.
this got some, and hopefully one of those trees are ganja trees that are going to be associated with keeping it nice and moist in that region.
I think so. Hold on a second.
Can you dig it?
Yeah, it's cool to see so many countries be able to show some unity and work for something positive, and
Yes,
that
sir.
when they saw some success or it, they expanded and started. Let's add water techniques, water conservation techniques, and more than just what they started out as a goal. So they set a goal, they attained the goal, and that success leads them to want to keep working together and keep doing more.
Yeah, and I think it's very likely that is due to self-preservation being the number one thing versus like capitalism and shit, making a profit, you know?
That's what's up. That's what's
But the
up.
other
No
thing,
profit in deserts.
the other thing, though, which is in stark contrast to what we know here in the States, is that was like 10 nations working together.
Teamwork.
It was like solid fucking teamwork, right? But you saw a different story this week, or actually, what? No,
It would be
2 weeks. 2 weeks ago now.
It's about 2 weeks ago now. But
here
yeah,
in the U.S.
there was no unity whatsoever as we tried to select a new speaker for the House of Representatives. It took 15 votes for the Republicans to finally get Kevin McCarthy through the finish line. That only required, there were 21 holdouts that were voting against McCarthy. And so every time he would come up to vote, we would have to go through 400 plus votes. And it would wind up being like, wait, we got to do this again. We didn't get enough votes to pick somebody. And
damn
there was 20, offshoot Republicans making crazy demands. And it seems like they got some of that through because eventually he won. But what you see is the difference of let's unite and do something good to we really want to cause as much chaos as possible.
But not giving a shit about, the American people. That's actually division in one single country.
Bullshit, man.
Yeah,
Versus-
in one chamber, and not even, it's like one chamber of one branch of the government, and it shuts everything down. So you've got the Senate and the House of Representatives make up the legislative branch, but you also have the executive branch, the president, and the judicial branch. Just one portion shut everything down, and they're going to be in a position to do that kind of thing for important votes for the next 2 years, which is why we kind of had to discuss it, because I think when raising the debt ceiling comes up, that's going to become an issue where you could potentially have a small group of Republicans say, we're going to really cause some damage, and then, hopefully people blame Biden for it or blame whoever else we can point the finger at.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of those things of a sign of like this is a tale of what's to come. What we saw, the mess happening there.
Word.
But there's a lot of argument about whether that was good or a useful moment as far as gaining some concessions from the speaker, who was eventually elected after 15 rounds?
15 on the 15th try they got it, but I don't know what useful concessions they got out of him. I guess
that's the argument.
You have to actually have a concession to point to, I guess, to say that it was something useful, because so far they have like, we're going to do a committee about, the dumbest shit. Like, we're going straight to Hunter Biden's laptop, back to the laptop, everyone. It's a lot of that nonsense. I think they want to be able to get rid of McCarthy more easily, so they were able to use some very old
I saw
precedent
that. It
for
does
that.
seem fairly useless as far as for the American people.
Very cornball, very performative, and I'm not sure they actually accomplished much of anything meaningful with it, which is where, that's where I would think something like this would matter. But I think it will come into play when they're trying to take away people, when they're trying to reduce Social Security, or when they're trying to cut into Medicare again, because when they're going to use the word entitlements, that's what they're talking about. Social Security, Medicare, and that sort of thing. So, just
This Herschel Walker got to say about this shit.
I was talking to Herschel the other day, and he was actually busy. He was going to see his 11th child.
Oh, man.
lies. You don't visit them.
In a wolf meeting.
But just to piggyback off of that story real quick, I think good news, at least for the Senate, is that Katie Porter is officially running for Feinstein's seat, right?
Yeah.
So Katie Porter, for people who don't know, is someone who goes hard with at corporations and lobbyists, Wall Street, big banks. She hammers these people effectively. She is one of the most effective communicators when she's doing it. And
she's also, I think, third in command of the Progressive Caucus, or she's one of the leaders of the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives right now. She came up from Elizabeth Warren's group, and she's really promising. Now, this wouldn't gain us a seat in the Senate. It would be keeping a seat.
Yeah.
But you'd be replacing Dianne Feinstein, who's not very good, with a very solid progressive. And there's also talk that Barbara Lee is going to run, and Barbara Lee is another very strong progressive candidate. So I kind of don't like that we'd have those two competing for the same seat rather than trying to take two seats down. But maybe that will come with more time when people decide they're not going to run, or when everything breaks down. So we'll see. But I think those are two names to watch for the Senate. They're already in the House of Representatives, and they do good work as far as if you're a progressive, if you like left-leaning causes.
Okay.
wait, before we move on, one thing to add to that, because you were saying about two really strong Democrats going head to head, which is kind of sucky. The bigger thing for me is that they're gonna that election is gonna cost a shitload of money. And both sides of those Democrats are going to have to spend a fortune to win.
To try and beat each other.
And that, they're going to spend a massive amount of money. Like money that could probably fix the pipes in up in Chicago, wherever it is. So that part of it is just something that just nags at me. I don't know.
True. No, I feel you on that. That's what sucks is I wish they could be more organized. But there are factions within the Democrats, and thus you get these types of situations. And I do think, actually, that reminded me of, speaking of factions, one idea that's come out of the whole mess that happened for voting for McCarthy was that C-SPAN was allowed to have their cameras in for the entire thing. You got to watch the drama unfold, and I've never talked to more people that actually were like, yeah, I was watching C-SPAN yesterday. I was watching all that mess on the floor. The votes were actually exciting, and things like that. And ironically, Matt Gaetz, who just loved the attention, at one point somebody had to be held back from looking like they were going to swing at him because he was holding things up. Matt Gaetz wants to pass a piece of legislation that would say C-SPAN can keep the cameras in there at all times. And for one time, I agree with Matt Gaetz, we should get the cameras in there because that was way more entertaining than I ever expected it to be. The negotiating, what's AOC saying to Gosar? What? I've never seen those two talk. All that drama was hella entertaining. It
was very close to turning into a British Parliament, brawl fest.
Yeah, somebody might have gotten clubbed if, they didn't hold people back.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
It's a scandal.
Boom.
Talk to him. Yo, so talking about people, we've been talking about people that have been united for positive or negative impacts. Here comes a story of a local community that united to find out what type of wildlife is in their community. So it's your boy Jaboom. So I want to tell you a little story. So about 6 months ago, me, myself, I live about in a 2-family house. One of my neighbors confessed one of the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard, that in the tough streets of Lodi, there is a porcupine. Now, if you don't know what a porcupine is a rodent that has coats of quills or spines on their back. They're pretty harmless unless you try to fuck with them and touch them. And the research came because a couple weeks ago as well, I heard it in the news, a dog attacked a porcupine in North Jersey. Fortunately, the dog didn't make it. Quills got old. Yeah, brother.
Porcupines are bodying dogs.
So I said, okay, so there are porcupines in North Jersey. So
the plot thickens. So you didn't believe it. You didn't believe it.
You didn't. And at first I was like, man, you too drunk. You talking crazy right now. So, and you'll be a fool to touch them, but most parts porcupines are definitely harmless. But anyways, so the other day again, speaking to my neighbor, he said, man, I saw him again. He said, John, man, I was out in the backyard talking to some of my peoples from Guadalajara, because, you know, they're from Mexico and they just got in. So they're in a conversation. He said, I looked and boom, there it was. And I jumped up and I went inside. I said, all right, man. So now that this is the second time you said this to me, now I got to go full research. So right away, I'm part of the Lodi FB community for complaint department. So you just
you joined. Hold on. So this was going on, and then you joined the community.
Yeah. So
you needed to investigate.
So I needed to investigate
The
about this
porcupine
porcupine
situation.
You know what I'm saying? So I reached out to my fellow Lodanians in our FB community chat. And there's about 15K members, so it's a good amount of people from Lodi in the streets that have an eye out and see what's going on.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
People
From
interested
Lodi
in
that are on Facebook.
Yeah, man. You know, no one said nothing. They said, hey, man, I ain't seen no damn porcupines, but I have seen fucking raccoons, and I seen, you know, the possum, the regular. One particular FB user, you know, thank God he used his periods right, because it sounded like to me he said, no, man, I ain't see nothing, coon. But he meant to say nothing. I haven't seen nothing but raccoon. So I said, hey, brother, you just call me coon for no reason? So anyway, I even asked some of my other neighbors, come to find out it's not an actual porcupine, but we've had a very nasty beaver in our local cul-de-sac community.
What the fuck is this story doing?
Yeah, this story's crazy. So there's a beaver in our cul-de-sac in Lodi.
It's acting like a porcupine?
It's acting like a porcupine.
Did the beaver kill the dog, or was it a porcupine?
Huh? What?
Remember the beaver?
Who killed the dog, man?
Oh, no.
Porcupine killed the dog, right?
That story led... This is a completely different... That story led
gotcha.
to me researching the local
So that was a
porcupine.
prior porcupine.
That
on
was
the
a
side.
prior porcupine that really did kill a dog.
So has the beaver killed anyone?
The beaver hasn't killed, but he's killing our fucking grass by making these holes in our backyards. So I said, brother, so you just came from Guadalajara, Mexico. I guess you never seen a porcupine before. This is a fucking beaver. Leave the beaver alone and go on your way, brother. So long story short, people, the legend of the porcupine is really the legend of the beaver of Lodi. Thanks to our local community in Lodi, FB and everybody, we found out that it was a goddamn beaver.
You heard it first. The story was broken here on TFP. I had to take a step back on that.
Yeah,
It's
man.
not a porcupine.
It's a goddamn beaver, man.
Beaver.
Beaver on crack.
Look, 15,000 people joining the community over there is really what got me, though.
Yeah, 15K in Lodi,
Really
man.
dedicated.
Dedicated to finding out.
Speaking of breaking news stories, we do have another breaking news story that's coming out right now. So you guys have all seen the Dana White video smacking his wife. We've seen the incident, right? It's old at this point. It's 2 weeks old. Everybody's seen the video. TMZ got the video. But TFP got the audio.
Exclusive.
We got the exclusive audio of exactly what was happening during the argument. We're going to play it for you right now.
How can you slap? How can you slap?
Whoa.
How can she slap? How can she slap me? How can you slap?
Damn, it got crazy.
How can she slap me? How did you enter?
Yes, so you heard it
Whoa.
first.
We've cracked the case.
We cracked the case of what was going on.
TFP exclusive. Fuck TMZ. It's TFP.
Alcohol is a motherfucker. Yeah, so, all jokes aside, we were talking about that story because of the, what's glaringly obvious, which is how brushed under the rug that shit just went. It came, went, and, it was, compared to what we normally see, that was like a blip.
That was my thing.
Here.
People get, like, when a slap happens in media, in big media, there's a panic, there's outrage, and we know because Will Smith slapped Chris Rock and got completely booted. All his movies were dropped, and, it took him a while before he could come back.
Slaps are just so disrespectful, you know what I'm saying? A slap is just... you know what I'm saying? Like a slap, it should go worldwide. Like
Will Smith slaps a grown-ass man, completely
just,
shut out.
You know
People
what
were
I'm saying?
talking about how traumatic it was. Like, there was so much drama over it, and then Dana White slaps his wife, And, you know, it's just kind of like nobody even covers it. The story barely gets any coverage. And I was just like, man, I don't know. At one point I was like, well, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. No big deal. Why are people panicking? And this one completely, everybody's like, didn't even see it.
Yeah, that's the true thing. So, but I'll tell you this, because I feel two ways about it, and people will probably hate me for it, but what you saw happen in that video is a ridiculously common thing that definitely happens between couples, especially when they're hammered and out and in some fucked up situation. And I've seen a million times that. I'm not condoning it, but when that happens to a regular couple, people probably, a few people close to them get mad, and it's not even a big deal. And it gets treated like this. Mm-hmm. But when somebody of that stature does it, like he was saying, you know, you saw Will Smith, how he got taken through the cleaners. But, you know, for some reason, this one didn't really go anywhere. So, I don't know. That whole part of it is definitely a standout, you know, for this incident. And we've seen other things in this arena right now going around. That's why we're leading that story into the next one. But I don't know if you have anything more on that, but I just felt like that's crazy. That's fucking nuts.
Well, yeah, on the Dana White one, it's kind of like I was a little off put by the amount of people that were like, because Dana White's wife definitely slapped him first, and a lot of people were like really relishing being able to be like, well, she got what she deserved. You know what I mean? And that, which leads me to the whole Andrew Tate thing. Because for the past, I guess, few weeks now, Andrew Tate was arrested. If you don't know who Andrew Tate was, he was the most viral man on the planet. His Google searches last month surpassed Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump. That's how big he is off social medias. Even John Boom. So, yeah, so he blew up on TikTok, on Twitter, that sort of thing. And people were saying he was doing a lot of toxic shit. So Vice just dropped a documentary where they were like, we're going to go investigate. We're going to go in to the $5,000 VIP boot camp that Andrew Tate's throwing. And they happen to do this just weeks before he gets arrested. But if you watch the documentary without knowing about the arrest, it's almost like a comedy, how ridiculous of a human being this is. Like the character he's created, the nonsense that he's spouting. Like he has these men pay $5,000 each to fly to, I guess, Romania. They go and he pulls them all aside into this thing. He's got like a seminar and he's like, everybody, I want you to be brave. I've hired professional MMA fighters who you will fight each tomorrow. What? You don't have to fight them. You can say no. And then he starts kind of guilting them like, you're a coward and you should face your fate.
What kind of dudes are showing up though?
Fight Club shit's going on.
What was the crowd like for this?
So here's the thing. Throughout the Vice documentary, the guy tried to interview the people and get a feel for who they were. But Andrew Tate had a security guy following them around and going, no. You can't interview with that guy. That guy's crazy. Oh, no, don't interview that guy. Here, I'll answer your questions. So you never got a feel for what these people were like. Except for in very set up circumstances. But about half of those dudes were like, yeah, I'm gonna fight a professional fighter. And even the journalist, to get closer, was like, yeah, I'll fight a professional fighter. But these dudes paid $5,000, flew to Romania, got their asses kicked, like got beat up. And then the next day, Andrew Tate had them give speeches about what they learned. And then also had the people who said no talk about, like, you know, did they miss an opportunity or something? It was absolutely ridiculous. It was comedic. But then the Vice documentary took a turn because then they got into the arrest. He's under arrest for potentially human trafficking and assault and kidnapping. And he was doing this for a webcam business. Turns out that years ago in the UK, the same allegations happened. 3 different women, 2 who knew each other, a third who had made previous allegations, all had accused him of this same sort of behavior, but the case got delayed, and within 4 years was thrown out. But what the Vice documentary includes is audio of his phone calls, images of some of the messages he was sending these women, and they're really messed up. It was foul. So for me, it's just like, this dude is one of the most popular voices on the planet. People are playing his shit like, oh yeah, he's telling it like it is. Oh, that's how you gotta treat women. Yeah, he's kidnapping potentially women. He's coercing them into webcam girl businesses, and then he's locking them up. And this is all according to 2 separate cases in 2 different countries, one of which he moved to, saying he was doing it to avoid these types of cases, and they're still investigating him. And just for anybody that says he got out, he's not out. His appeal was denied. They kept him in for at least 30 days, saying he's a flight risk, and the other 3 people in the case with him.
Yeah, that's just a wild thing to me. The thing to me with the Andrew Tate stuff is that I think I'm speaking for most people that I know and probably hang out with. When I watch him in a video, I do not think that's confidence. This is what a man needs to look like. That just what I see is like douchebaggery. I'm sorry. He could be cool. I don't know him personally. He might be a rapist. But the guy fucking, when I watch that video, my first thing is to cringe and be like, oh, God.
Looks like a tool trying too hard.
This is what kids who don't know what confidence look like watch.
That's what it feels like.
Their fucking confidence. But for sure, if you watch Andrew Tate and think, yeah, man, yes, he can spout off some things when he's talking that sound good or make sense in the middle of all the stuff that he's saying. Yeah, I can agree that you can probably plug some diamonds out of there somewhere. Mm-hmm. But please, man.
But it's
watching that dude and not cringing and being like, oh, God.
The pieces that you peel from him are all like self-help, typical self-help nonsense.
101.
The same way like Jordan Peterson's book will have like stand up straight. Like, yeah, useful advice that you can get from anybody. You're not a guru for that nonsense. You know what I mean? Clean your room. Good job. I've learned something very intuitive, like very important from you. But yeah, with Tate, it's just one of those things where the people he's speaking to or who they played, like teachers that we're talking about, these are like students that were taking real important lessons from him and treating people differently. Women whose boyfriends started being assholes to them. So, I think the documentary is really worth a watch, The Dangerous Rise of Andrew Tate, because if you're not very online, you probably haven't seen the extent of it. You might have seen some clips and thought they were kind of chuckle funny. But yeah, he's a ridiculous person. And also, he may be a human trafficker. So
yeah, I can only take about 5 to 10 minutes of that dude before I'm fucking cutting it to the next rail, man. Like, I don't know. I mean, I understand like the media right now, the way they take their advice, but my man is just a straight piece of shit, man. Like, I mean, again, he does have some small things, Jules, that he might, good ideas or whatever, but 95% of that guy is just pure bullshit.
So let me tell you.
You feel me?
Let me tell you another story about someone. This guy probably needed the Andrew Tate class. I don't know.
God damn.
But since we're on this crazy sex stuff that's going on.
Sex scandals.
Literally.
Dangerous.
In Tennessee, there was a wild
Tennessee
police officer sex orgy that led to a bunch of cops getting fired and suspended.
They didn't invite me, huh, motherfuckers?
And the story was pretty funny to me when I saw it, but This part is what I'm talking about. This guy, maybe he needed some
Tate 101?
101, I guess. The husband of a U.S. police officer who was fired for having sex with 6 other officers and a wholesome state park ranger is a wholesome state park ranger, the New York Post has learned. Ex-cop Megan Hall said that she and her husband, Jedediah Hall, were in an open marriage, although he did not seem to be on board.
Jedediah, no.
Jedediah might need to go to Andrew Tate's class. I'm not sure. But, yeah, this lady
6
essentially got a train ran on her by several other officers, and they got caught.
Who was answering 911 when they were all...
crime must be super low over there if everybody's just fucking in the precinct.
You know what? Sorry for the situation is wild, right? She wanted to do like a Girls Gone Wild, some crazy shit. The guys went in and smashed. I guarantee none of these people were like, we're gonna be getting fired. Those officers wanted to get in on that.
Right.
What a wild thing, though.
All it takes is one idiot with his body cam on.
Oh, shit.
Assault on Precinct 69. Shit.
But yo, that's crazy. All these fucking insane sex stories are going around.
The sex scandals of Tennessee.
And why does it appear that everyone who's actually charged with evidence has a whole contingency of people who think that's a conspiracy, but then all of these other people where there's not a drop of fucking proof, they
believe that.
They're sure.
Well, they're
Tom
the same.
Hanks.
It's the same people.
Tom Hanks is definitely a pedophile because I don't know why.
Because he was one of the first to announce that he had COVID. That's basically where that started.
All right, we spent a lot of time on that. Let's switch this up. Let's go down a very exciting and much more serious avenue with the story that we got coming up next.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this potential revolutionary therapy for cancer. It's curing incurable cancers. So I'm going to start with a BBC story called Base Editing.
Ding, ding. That's always good right there.
Right? Base Editing. Revolutionary therapy clears girls' incurable cancer. It's from December 11th of 2022. It's about this girl, Alyssa, who had leukemia, and they tried every single treatment that you could. They did bone marrow transplant, everything. Nothing worked. So with no help, with no other chance, they had two options, which was to try this therapy that had never been trialed on anybody, or they could just try to make her as comfortable as possible with what was left of their time with her. So they decided to fight. They tried this technology. What they did was they took out... So let's just describe the leukemia she had. Essentially, her white blood cells are supposed to fight viruses, illnesses when they get into your system, but her white blood cells were attacking her body. So they extracted some of these white blood cells. They edited one gene in these white blood cells, and then they did like a little extra editing so that they wouldn't attack each other, the edited cells, but they would attack the rest of the white blood cells. And they wiped out her immune system, did a second bone marrow transplant to replenish her immune system, and now she's got good, clean white blood cells. And she is cancer-free.
Let's go.
After this treatment. It's insane. It's a really crazy story. I'm doing a very simplified, dumbed-down version of it. The BBC gives you a really good breakdown. They have, like, pictures and step-by-step of what was done and how it worked. They tell you the girl's story, and it's been, I believe she was at her 6-month checkup last. They had been worried about a few levels of her, stuff at 3 months, but by 6 months, she's in the clear, and they're really hopeful. They're going to keep checking every 3 months.
Let's go.
So this was the very first case of gene editing curing.
So this is the first case of that cancer. They're doing trials on other forms of cancer that are all also promising, and they're doing trials on other certain types of ailments where they know what the genetic code is that causes the issue. For something that's a little more in-depth about how far along we are, because this is still very early, obviously. It's one case of a success. They're doing trials in very limited expense. You can go to nature.com, has an article in their news from November 2022 called CRISPR Cancer Trial Success Paves the Way for Personalized Treatments. And that'll give you a little more of a scientific look of it, more exact with how they're projecting things out. So if you want the more scientific version, go to Nature. The BBC story is a little more like easy to read, simplified, and exciting, really, because this could be a treatment not just for incurable cancers. This could be a type of treatment that
anything, right?
resolves a lot of issues. Maybe not anything, but like anything that has to do with like genome going crazy. I think they mentioned sickle cell anemia is a potential one. I think diabetes is the other one. There are potential cures for for certain ailments that we just haven't had therapies for before. So, or not.
Let's go.
Anything as promising as this.
You know what? First of all, that's an amazing story, and I think I'm gonna go read that a little later because that would just be fantastic for so many people who, especially if they can do something at an early stage in life that will prevent you from having to deal with this later on. I mean, that's just fantastic in itself. But what I was gonna say was, all of that science and all of that advancement and all that hope and stuff that we can look forward to, I wonder where the people fit in that world who just spent the past 2 years saying that the vaccine was going to put a chip in you and it was going to kill you and make you grow an arm out of your head. Because I'm just wondering, do those people hear stories like this and they get to enjoy how amazing we are coming and making these advances in
Probably
science?
not.
Or do they hear that and they're like, fuck that?
That's a psyop. That's a psyop.
Probably.
They want you to get the vaccine. It's because of the jab. You know, it's that bullshit coming out their mouth. You
Damn
know,
it.
it's very bad talk.
That's so amazing. But anyway, great fucking story. You know, John, when you were telling the story about the legend of the porcupine,
right on.
of Lodi, who became the
A beaver.
Yes, that made
Animorphs.
me want to circle back and talk about some other fantastic creatures.
Yes.
I have a story that I read this whole thing, bugged me out, and I'm just gonna read it to you guys so you can check this out. Right, this really all the way through just made me feel good. While traveling around Istanbul, you might stumble upon many things: a cart selling sweet fried dough desserts, beautiful architecture, or even a pup traveling alone on a subway. One dog had been showing up to take the tram and train by himself for a few months before the locals started to wonder what he was getting up to, so they decided to contact the authorities to keep an eye on the pooch. But nothing could have prepared them for where the dog led them. One day, toward the end of the summer of 2021, people started to notice a surprising visitor joining them on their journeys around the city. A sweet dog was often seen traveling along with the passengers, keeping to himself and riding along as if he was just another passenger. Once people started to see him more than once, they began to wonder where he was coming from. The dog was a mystery to everyone around him. He traveled without a collar, without another person with him, and leading from one train to another. Every morning, he would be there once again, traveling from one place to another as if he really did have places to be and knew exactly how to get there. And yet, he seemed to be completely alone. People began to worry about where the dog's owner was and did he have a home. The canine never seemed as if he was waiting for an owner to come and collect him. Instead, he independently and easily would take transportation. He often was seen on the metro, tram line, and even the ferries. In between his commutes, he hung out at the stations. If the weather was nice and sunny, the dog be sprawled outside, soaking up the warmth of the sun. If it was cold and rainy, he'd be huddled up inside the station. Passerbyers were perplexed by the dog's peculiar actions. People were particularly interested in the dog when he was getting on and off the train. Just by observing him, passengers could tell that he knew what he was doing. He'll stand on one side of the platform, and as soon as he hears the vibration of the train coming, he goes to the very end of the platform. Then he basically traces the train back and waits by the door. He knows exactly where the doors are. Without a clear owner, people became worried about the lone dog and his travels on the subway. And although he didn't cause any issues or bother any other passengers, he made people concerned about his well-being, right? So after a few months of watching the dog navigate the transportation... Months. Watching him navigate the transportation system, the public decided that contacting the authorities should be their next step to make sure the dog was okay and taken care of. Little did they know, the authorities had already caught wind of the traveling pup. The public transportation was alerted about the lost dog on the train. The lady's name is Aylin, head of customer relations, told CNN's Istanbul department. But they were already keeping tabs on the dog. The pup was special from what they were told. 2 months ago, we noticed the dog trying to use our trams, metros, and trains, and he knows where to go and he knows where to get out. It was quite interesting, and we've started to follow him. So the train people started following the dog.
Everybody's like, this is sketchy. What's going on with this dog?
Where does
what the
he
fuck
work
is this
at?
dog doing? And who
doing?
taught him this shit? Intrigued by the dog, public transit officials kept an extra close eye on him. But they did even more than that. They became protective of him. And instead of kicking the dog out or calling animal control to come retrieve him, the transportation officers felt they needed to care for him. Because it was clear no one owned the dog, officials took it upon themselves to bring him to the veterinary clinic, have him go through his regular health tests, And what they found was surprising. The dog wasn't particularly mangy. Still, one would expect a dog who spends most of his time on public transportation to basically be a fucking mess, and he wasn't. The opposite was true. Tests came back and they showed the pup had previously received his treatments and needed to be clean and was a clean and healthy animal. And he had already been sterilized. The dog's green tags on his ear indicated that he had been neutered. But health tests weren't only the transit team's concern, blah, blah, blah. Authorities decided their curiosities were too strong to leave unaddressed, and they wanted to make sure they knew he was well. So they decided to put a tracker on him. They gave him a microchip that would track with a tracking device on it. It would transmit his location to an application on a mobile device and show exactly where he was.
They put a Fitbit on this.
Oh,
It turns out the dog did a lot more than what people were expecting and what they were expecting. The passengers in public transportation knew he was an avid traveler, but they had no idea how far he would go. By looking at his movements and tracking the device, they were able to see that on an average, the poop was visiting 29 stations a day, traveling over 30 kilometers or 18 miles around the city. It's clear the pup feels the most comfortable in a moving vehicle. In fact, he probably sees more of the city than most people living in Istanbul. In fact,
let's go.
One train ride took him farther than he'd been before. The dog found himself on a ferry that led him to a far away from the city center, ending up on a Princess Island archipelago southeast of Istanbul.
Damn, sounds like a good ass life.
How he managed to get
sightseeing all the time.
Word.
Dog managed to get back on the right boat and get back to the center of fucking town, which is just amazing.
They shouldn't have sterilized this dog because they should be using this dog's genes to create super dogs.
So this dog basically travels around. No one knows his owner's not around, and they've got so far that they're now putting up signs around the stations on how to interact with him, making sure people leave the dog alone, and it's just
he's
nuts.
Eating and shit. He's healthy, you know.
So over there in Istanbul, there's stray animals everywhere, and people in the community don't treat them like they do here in the States. Over there, everyone takes care of strays. So it's common to have bowls of food and stuff laid out for cats and dogs. Now, crazy thing about this dog here, they nickname him Boji. Boji, the dog, traveling dog, has one thing that pisses him off, and it's cats. When he sees the cats, he goes ape shit and he chases them up trees and everything. So the dog is this crazy, amazing dog, but he goes nuts over cats.
Very disciplined, can learn the subway map, will still lose his shit if
He
a
can
cat
take
runs
the ferry, still loses his shit over a cat. And the crazy thing about that is Istanbul is known as Catstanbul because they have a crazy amount of loose cats and stray cats.
So maybe that's why he's stopping all over Istanbul. He's got a lot of cats to go after.
Yeah, right.
Up trees.
Probably a vigilante on the
You
low.
think he's a hit dog?
He's like the Batman of dogs. Of Istanbul.
He's going to take out crazy cats. What if he is
according to a schedule?
Yeah,
according
right?
to the schedule,
He got a run to do. He got cats to assassinate.
I think
like, oh shit, Boji's coming! Run!
The drug enforcement
Train pulls
agencies,
up. You know,
they gotta
like,
follow this dog. What if he's dropping off drugs at all these locations?
Oh,
Could be.
it could be.
Somebody taught him how to, read a subway map or some shit.
Maneuver
Fucking nuts.
Yeah.
This is a ferry, Boji. Take that when you need to get far away and hide from the ops.
So overall rating is Boji's a good dog.
Yeah, I fuck with Boji. He's an 8.9 in my book.
Maybe.
If you're not a cat.
As long as you're not a cat. Yeah. To some.
Is that fucking Tom?
Boji. So
Boji.
speaking of animals, there's one more we really got to talk
Speaking
about.
of animals,
Yes, sir.
Traveling and knowing exactly where to stop.
Let's go. We're going right back into the wildlife. This is a story brought to you by John Boom, co-signed by Worldstar, and co-referenced by Google. All right, so let me just break this down. So a pigeon was found in a Canadian prison yard with a tiny backpack filled with meth.
Hold on.
Can you dig it?
Stop right
straight out of Mayor
Straight
of
out the
Kingstown.
gate.
Straight out, baby.
Straight out the gate.
Now, this is a true story. Now, this is still carrying a decades-long tradition of drug smuggling. The pigeon was captured at the Pacific Institution in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Now, after 45 minutes of the prison guards chasing the motherfucker in the yard, they finally cornered him, captured him, and found 30 grams of meth in his little backpack.
Big was that
Jesus
backpack?
Christ.
Now, this ain't the first time. Back in 2015, a prison in Costa Rica called La Forma, a pigeon was caught smuggling cocaine and weed as well. Now, we can even go further back. In February 2nd, 1930, New York Times printed an article that smugglers were raising their homing pigeons to make they were raising homing pigeons. Like, if you know what a homing pigeon is, it can travel about 700 miles and return back home.
Nice.
So Boji was covering 18 miles. These motherfuckers covering 700
Well, it's a bird. Let's be
miles. Yeah,
fair.
It's true.
Let's be
Boji's
fair.
got to take the train. Bird just fly on
And
over.
the bird just flies over. Boji got to use transportation.
Yeah, Boji got to
But
take
the
his time.
Bird's got to make drop-offs.
Yeah, this bird is This bird is the drug
Make it
traveler.
stops. Yeah.
Now,
this
my
dude-
question is, after they get the drugs from the birds, are they interrogating the bird? Is the pigeon getting any time
I don't know.
for these type of crimes?
I think what they should do is put that chip that they put in Boji, put in the bird, and see where he goes back to.
Pow, get the motherfuckers.
Busted.
Now, this is more, it's not so in depth, but it just goes hand in hand with Boji, the traveling. It can go from pigeons to dogs. So if FedEx, motherfucking UPS doesn't work, grab yourself a pigeon, make sure the package you can carry it, and send that motherfucker.
Right? 30 grams, no problem.
What's the heaviest a pigeon can carry? That's what
I
we
mean,
gotta
up
find
to the
out.
article is how much? 30 grams. And that fits in a little backpack, and
And
they're getting
backpack on, that fits around their wings.
and they're getting
I wanna see the
charismatic.
backpack.
They're coloring the backpacks to match the color of the birds, so you really gotta peel them back and take a look at.
Camouflage bird backpacks.
Yes,
That's fucking
This
crazy.
is next level.
yeah. Like I just saw in the picture that I put in that little chat. That's the actual bird.
That is the bird.
Wait, so what happens to the bird after? Like, do they execute the bird?
No, they let him go free. Now, to be honest, once they take the drugs of him, they let the motherfucker
He
go.
ain't going free. He's flying back.
He's flying back, but now
another run.
what I'm thinking is
can
once the
follow.
pigeon returns back to the essential home that he came with the drugs from, that's going to set up a red flag. Why is the pigeon back not coming back with the money? Now, what happens to him
Then he becomes
in the
chicken
cartel?
wings.
Yep. Now that's when it's a
where-
problem. That's what the problem really is.
Do you think
Now
it's
that
a-
pigeon sleeps with the fishes.
Do you
Yes.
think these are all New York pigeons originally? Because I've seen some really.
I mean,
Crazy
you got
pigeons,
Costa
huh?
Rica, you got British Columbia, and then 1930, it was essentially started, and it was an article in the New York Times, so essentially started in the tough streets in New York, sending those pigeons off to Cuba and Guadalajara,
I think that's pretty.
and why,
amazing.
When those New York pigeons migrate south,
shit,
they're bringing drugs with them.
they're bringing shit back. And that's how we roll.
They're not sending their best.
They're not sending our best avian.
They got a pigeon called Pelican that is a motherfucker. He goes everywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a fun and interesting few stories. I think I botched up the first one. Putting a video on made me nervous, and I
Yeah.
felt like a fucking moron.
Nah,
I was
nah.
like, but then I kind of got relaxed. And I
Don't
felt
worry,
like
the
a little better.
porcupine beaver made up for that.
The porcupine beaver did make up for that. That was a good one. We had just as a couple of alts to mention. One story we'll save for the next episode about a Nobel physicist who has discovered previous universes than our own.
Roger
Oh,
Penrose.
okay.
This guy's legit.
We're gonna bring that up on the next one. And a notable mention, which we don't have some details on it at the moment, but just to throw out there, De La Soul recently won back their Masters
After decades of
Let's
fighting.
go.
After decades,
Yeah.
And,
Back in the days, motherfuckers wasn't getting their masters at all, man.
No,
We getting screwed back in the
Jerk,
day.
bro. So Spotify is gonna have their whole discography on March 3rd. I think it's in March. They'll be dropping their
Nice,
whole
nice.
discography to Spotify.
That's dope. And I just saw, we talked earlier real quick about Math Hoffa. A good episode is with MC Search. And he talks about Nas and his percentage of ownership and Nas's masters and how that all went down. And it's a really fantastic episode. And if anything, not the whole thing, watch the clip specifically about Nas and what's his name? Search's
How Search
actually
looked him out.
Search just got back his ownership from the Gas Face, from that whole era. I forget the name of that album, but yeah. So anyway, shout out to them. You guys got anything else you wanna before we pop up? Before we get out of here?
We always do some type of TV recommendation.
Oh,
I
okay.
just started. Yeah, you want to take turns?
go
we
ahead.
got time.
Go ahead.
But I just started on Paramount because we got that Paramount for the new year subscription. That's our new thing to look through.
Let's go.
I started watching The Offer. It's about the making of The Godfather and all the craziness that happened behind the scenes of that. And I know The Godfather, of course. I didn't know any of these crazy stories about how the mob didn't want it to happen at first. Frank Sinatra was mad. They had to work with all types of craziness going on.
Come on, Frank.
Marlon Brando negotiations. It's super entertaining. It's got a really good cast, and I highly recommend it to anybody that even remotely likes the Godfather movie because there's so much more that happened to get that movie made.
Did you happen to see a Pale Blue Eye on Netflix?
Yeah.
Christian Bale, how you felt about that?
I was a little annoyed because as an Edgar Allan Poe stan, I felt like they made him way too normal and charismatic. Like that dude was really dreary and depressed.
Yeah,
and
right,
he was
right.
supposed to be our emo, our emo Godfather, but instead this dude was like really charming. No.
Is it maybe because they caught a younger Edgar Allan Poe instead of?
It's like they tried to do the Edgar Allan Poe origin story. Like this is why he's so depressed.
I actually did see that too.
Well, how you felt about it?
Whack.
I did. I thought the same thing. Like, but what I was thinking about it was that was supposed to be what kind of made him the Edgar Allan Poe that he became. He wasn't that yet. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was okay, not fantastic.
Yeah, I hated it.
How about the twist?
Lame.
You didn't like the twist either?
Predictable. Lame.
Did it?
I hated it.
You know what? Because I like those wintry, snowy movies. Like they got me just off the location itself. I like those wintry motherfuckers.
Did you ever see The Wolf of Snow Hollow?
Yes, that was good.
That's a good
I fuck with that heavy. That was good. It's fucking movie. Yeah, it was good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Pow.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Vamanonos, my man Lou,
Vamanonos
for
Digital
helping us out with this video. And tune in. We'll have another drop real soon.
Yes, sir.
More
Have a
sex
good one.
scandals.
Peace.
Take care, fam.